Welcome back. A victory for the Trump administration. The Supreme Court has allowed the latest version of the president's travel ban to take effect. The revised ban denies entry into the United States by residents of 6 mostly Muslim countries, plus North Korea and Venezuela. Joining me this morning is former press secretary to Vice President Pence, Marc Lotter. And Marc, it's good to have you on the program this morning. Thanks so much for being here.
Good morning, Maria.
What's your take on this announcement? Give us the sense of what this means on a practical basis.
Well, this is a big victory for the president and for the safety of the American people. I mean, the president has made it very clear in these countries that have been compromised by terrorism, when we don't have reliable information coming in, we're going to limit the immigration from those countries while we do extreme vetting. And this is upholding the rule of law, which has been honored by many presidents in the past. And we had some liberal judges who've tried to basically create their own laws and usurp the power of the presidency.
But it's not over just yet, right? I mean, this is going through the legal system. So what happens next?
Well, there are continuing to be court challenges that will go forward. Basically, what the Supreme Court did was it allowed the ban to go in effect while these other legal challenges still work their way through the court systems. Many people expect that this is going to end up at the Supreme Court next year. This is obviously a good sign, but it's also really more important right now that the ban can go into effect, and the president, the Department of Homeland Security can take all necessary actions to protect our American people from people that could be coming in that we just don't know enough information about from these compromised countries.
Well, clearly the threats are rising across the world facing the United States. That we know. We want to get to a lot of things with you today, Marc. I want to get into the tax plan, but let me get your take on this. Another Washington story. The FBI agent that was dismissed from special counsel Robert Mueller's investigation for exchanging anti-Trump texts with a bureau lawyer. He's at the center of a more political uproar. So electronic records show that he changed then FBI Director James Comey's description of how Hillary Clinton handled classified information. First, Comey called it grossly negligent, but then he changed the wording to extremely careless. The legal implications for those, of course, differ. Congressman Trey Gowdy reacted to this. What's your take on this? Listen to this.
From a perception standpoint, it's incredibly serious. He was one of the agents in Secretary Clinton's investigation. He was on Mueller's special counsel. He has anti-Trump, perhaps pro-Clinton texts. People have the right to assume the people that are investigating them are objective and have not already made up their minds. That's why we need to see the text and we need to interview this special agent. But the Bureau's had a really bad last 18 months, and this makes it worse.
All of the politicking going on at the FBI, Marc. What do you think of this?
I mean, it's very disturbing. It is something that needs to be looked into further. You know, the one thing that that we need to point out, though, is that the men and women of the FBI that are out there doing their great work every day are continuing to do that. This is really an indictment of some of the top leadership in the past and the politicization of the bureau. But that does not take away from what we're seeing every day, the great work that the FBI is doing out there. But when it comes to some of the top levels and some of these actions that they've taken in recent years that look to be very political, that's something that should be looked into further by Congress and by others.
Yeah. Well, is that going to happen, though? People are wondering where justice is. I mean, we see all of these investigations taking place, and then we see all the conversation about potential collusion between the Trump administration and the Russians. So far, zero evidence there, and yet there is evidence of wrongdoing elsewhere. People want to see some accountability. Do you think we'll get it?
I think we will. I think Congress in both houses are taking a serious look at this. They see what's going on here. They see that, we continue to be distracted by allegations of collusion that have still never been proven, like you pointed out. And yet when you have actions and you have evidence and suggestions that things were not handled properly as it related to Hillary Clinton, those need to be looked into. The American people need to know what actually happened and what went into those decisions. Was it based on facts or was it based on politics?
Let me switch gears. Let me ask you about the tax plan right now in terms of where we are. A lot of people wondering if, in fact, the House is just going to accept the Senate plan and move on that, even though there are things in the Senate plan that people are unhappy with, like, for example, they're not repealing the AMT entirely. Like, for example, they've got a delay in the corporate rate. Should they just accept the Senate plan, or do you think these next few days will be effective in terms of weeding out what might not be perfect in this plan?
I think they'll end up going to conference and working out their differences, and that's how the system is designed to work. It's the regular order that so many members have talked about. You'll get the two houses together. They'll find a way to meet in the middle. There are some slight differences. They're important differences, but they're slight, and I don't think anybody from the House or the Senate believes they're insurmountable, and that by Christmas there will be a bill on President Trump's desk. He'll sign it, and it'll be a great Christmas for the American people.
Yeah, so you think they will change some things this week, and it'll be on his desk within the next 2 weeks then?
I do. I think they're getting very close. They're having those discussions. You know, there are slight differences in terms of when do you bring in the corporate tax rate, how many tax brackets where they'll be, where will those tax brackets fall, and then they have to do this within the framework of what the budget and the Senate rules allow. But I think at the end of the day, they will get there. They'll find an agreement. We're going to cut taxes for the middle class. We're going to unleash the power of the American the economy and create jobs, which is what the president has said he's wanted to do from day one.
Yeah, for sure. Let me ask you, in terms of the 2018 election, how do you see things? I know that there's a lot of worry, given the uncertainty of where we are in terms of legislation, legislative wins, what will take place in the 2018 election. The president seems to be urging Senator Hatch to run for re-election. What are you expecting in 2018? Are you as worried as some of your colleagues in terms of losing the majority in the House?
I'm not. You know, this is when lawmakers go back to their districts, when they're able to deliver on the president's plan for cutting taxes, growing the economy, when you see the economic growth that you report on every day, Maria, that's taking place in our country, Americans will start to feel that as we get further into 2018. And when these tax cuts are added on top of it, they'll actually feel it in their paychecks, start to see that growth. I think Republicans will be in a very good position. And here's the bottom line. When you're facing a 2018 election, when you're a Republican going out there, do we want tax cuts? Do we want to grow our military? Do we want to confront ISIS and our enemies? Or you're faced with the opposition, which is basically the party of no ideas. The Democrats have long ago decided it's easier to make people afraid of something than to actually stand for something. And that's something that the voters will make a decision on. And I think they'll continue the Republican leadership that's got our country moving in the right direction again.
All right. We will be watching. Mark, it's good to see you again. Thanks so much.
Good to see you.
Now,
Thanks.
An outside advocate for the administration, former special assistant to President Trump, former press secretary for Vice President Mike Pence, Marc Lotter there.